A doctor and his family moved from New York City to a quiet small town to be closer to his family. But all that did not go well because they were terrorized by the city's native residents. At the beginning of the film, a doctor named Cale was talking to the mayor of a small town called Ashboro. Later, Cale would move there to carry out his duties as a doctor. He was welcomed by the mayor, especially since they really needed a doctor. Cale prepared himself with the help of his wife, Christine, his daughter, Jessica, and their dog, Paige. When they entered the small town, they immediately lost their cell phone signal, like a city isolated from the outside world, but many people were seen. Cale had been provided with a house to live in, and the house was big enough, even very big for the three of them to live in. But just as they arrived, Cale accidentally stepped on a small nail while Jessica was feeling unwell and vomited. Maybe it was just the effect of the long journey. Not long after, an old man named Phil and his grandson Tyler appeared. They welcomed Cale and got to know each other. Phil was very happy that finally there was a doctor who replaced the previous doctor. Phil asked Cale to come to his house to eat and drink as their new neighbor. At the same time, Phil asked Cale to check on his wife's condition, who was not feeling well. When they arrived at Phil's house, Cale borrowed their toilet to clean the wound from stepping on a small nail. Phil directed Cale to use the toilet in his wife's room. A little suspicious, but Cale tried to stay positive. Initially, Cale saw Phil's wife sleeping, but suddenly she was standing facing the window. Cale introduced himself while trying to treat Phil's wife, but Phil's wife firmly said that she would not be cured. Since then, Cale decided to go home to his new house and tried not to think about various things. That night, they started organizing things, including photos of Christina's childhood. Christina was very happy that they could finally go to a quiet town. Cale's journey to becoming a doctor had begun. Many patients came to check their conditions. Cale also received several samples of dangerous viruses that he would research, one of which was Ebola. There was a patient named Miss Hunter. She was different from the others. Her gaze seemed as if she wanted to possess Cale and wanted to be close to him. The next day, when Cale had free time, he took the time to relax, accompanied by Phil, into the forest behind Cale's house. There was a place where some kind of ritual used to take place. Legend has it that this place was once used by the early inhabitants of this city to sacrifice living creatures. Usually they used animals. That was the way it was used to avoid disaster. And reportedly the ritual is still carried out today. Cale might not believe in something like that, especially in this modern era. One day, they gathered in the churchyard with other residents. Dr. Cale was quite famous and many people greeted him. One of them was the sheriff and his son. Meanwhile, Cale saw Kristen talking to a woman named Zealous. Her gaze was suspicious. Then they entered the church. Cale, who was curious, then approached her, but instead he met Miss Hunter, who said that Cale could save her. What does she mean? Cale left her there and looked for Kristen, who turned out to be outside. Since then, Kristen seemed to have changed. Her attitude became a bit cold towards Cale. Not only that, Cale also felt there was something in his new house. Like there was someone, but there was no one. The next day, Kristen told Cale that she was pregnant. Even though it was good news, Kristen didn't seem happy. That night, when Cale slept, he dreamed that Miss Hunter said again that she could protect him. Cale woke up and heard a loud noise from the direction of the barn, and it turned out to be a goat. Cale hit it with a hard object until the goat died. Cale went to look for a cloth to bury the goat, but when he returned, the goat was gone. Cale asked Kristen if she heard any noise last night, but Kristen didn't hear anything. Strange incidents kept appearing. When Cale was alone at home, Miss Hunter came in covered in blood. She only said, "Kristen," before she died. Cale tried to call Phil to tell him about this incident, but the phone line was interrupted. When Cale returned, Miss Hunter had disappeared. This incident was similar to last night. Cale went to the sheriff and reported what happened to him, but the sheriff didn't take it seriously. Another problem arose. This time his car wouldn't start, so he had no choice but to take it to the repair shop to be repaired. Then Cale saw a crowd in the middle of the road, and Kristen was there too. It turned out they were looking at Miss Hunter's body. How could she be there? Cale wanted to talk to Phil about what happened to him, but Phil seemed to be avoiding him. Coincidentally, Cale had an ultraviolet light and tried it. The light could see blood marks or invisible traces. How surprised he was to find many handprints in his house. On the sofa, on the door, in the refrigerator, Even in Jessica's room, there were so many traces there. The internet network was also not available in the city. Then Zealous appeared in front of him. Zealous said that this was all because Cal did not perform the ritual. Kale thought this was just a joke. Then some legendary humans appeared that Phil told him about. It turned out they really still existed. Kale was not hurt by them, but was taken to a cave and asked to help give birth to the elder of their race. Kale had to do it carefully because he had medical equipment at home. After successfully removing the baby, Kale was then taken out and woke up on the sofa and looked messy. The funny thing is that Kristen did not look surprised and only asked Kale to clean the sofa and her body. Kale came to Phil to ask what happened and why things like this were not explained to him from the start. Tyler actually blamed Kale for not sacrificing living creatures. Because of that, everything became like this. They couldn't talk freely there because the creature could hear their conversation. Kale was getting increasingly strange treatment from Kristen. At that time, Kale asked him to leave the city, but Kristen refused. Kale closed all the windows with boards so that the creature couldn't enter the house. But Tyler said that it was just a waste. That night, Kale saw his dog outside and asked him to follow him. Kale was taken to the ritual site. He was surprised to see Miss Hunter, then seemed to ask him to make love. Kale woke up and was terrorized by the creature. They asked Kale to come back into the cave. There Kale saw one of them who had just given birth and looked dying. Kale tried to help her, but in vain. In the end, the creature died and his friends started to eat her. Besides that, there was Phil. They caught him. If he wanted to survive, Kale had to kill Phil, and Kale had no choice but to do that. Because he was fed up, Kale finally tried to leave the city, but the sheriff stopped him. The sheriff wouldn't let Kale and his family leave, or he would shoot. Kristen tried to hit the sheriff from behind and leave. But before that, Kale remembered Tyler trying to get him to leave. But unfortunately, Tyler was held captive by Zealous, and some of the creatures started attacking Kristen and Jessica in the car. Kale managed to get Tyler away and deal with the wild creatures. But again, they were blocked by the sheriff, so they had to find another way. But all the roads were blocked, and their car crashed into a tree trunk in the middle of the road. Kale and the others returned home, but there were many wild creatures blocking them until Tyler did not survive. Kale took one of the creatures to take a blood sample and store it. Maybe that way he could research it. After that incident, the creatures returned to the cave temporarily because there were already victims. But in fact, Jessica was kidnapped by them and Kale was now really angry. Kale brought a virus from the bubonic plague which he would later inject into one of them who was dying. When the others started to eat it, the virus began to attack and kill them one by one. Kale also managed to find Jessica in the cave. The next day, it was time for Kristen to give birth with the help of Zealous. In the meantime, Kristen apologized to Kale for bringing them to the city. Then, Kristen gave birth to a baby from the wild creatures. So it turns out that Kristen was once a resident of the city, as she already knew what would happen, including the wild creatures and the ritual. This means that the child born was the result of the relationship between the wild creatures and Kristen.